This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. It's very important that everybody understands that the news, the entire purpose of the news is not to inform the audience, it's to condition the audience. Thus, every single story that makes the news is there because it's ultimately programming you into wanting something that they want you to either have or live by. And that's a mindset that people need to have if they're going to come out of this spell. Because ultimately we can look around every single day and there are stories that happen. Anything could really make the news. There's things that happen in your town every day. There's certainly things that happen in your county or your city every single day that are worthy of news. They choose the things to air. A lot of the times these stories are manufactured, but ultimately the reason that they choose what to air is because they're pushing an agenda on you without you even realizing it. Larry Fink of BlackRock, who runs and controls his company BlackRock, just like Vanguard, these companies run and control everything, right? And ultimately, Larry Fink has been out in the open talking about controlling people's behaviors. And in order to control people's behaviors, they have to force things to control your behavior. In other words, what Larry Fink says in this clip is ultimately about deceiving you into forcing your compliance.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. Well, behaviors are going to have to change. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
So when people see a clip like that, they ultimately will go, oh, he's not going to tell me what to do. He's not going to tell me how to behave. I'm my own person. I'm my own individual. And what they do is they put these news stories out there so that you start wanting the things that they already want you to want. In other words, I'll show you a few of the things that I'm talking about here ultimately, right? In a New World Order structure, you are enslaved. One of the things, let's start with this story. I've talked about it many times over the years. One of the things you will not be allowed to do is travel. So if you love traveling, say goodbye. If you love going state to state, well, you're going to have an allotted amount of time you're allowed to leave your state because of your carbon footprint. Ultimately, all these things that they're doing, they're hitting you from different psychological aspects, right? So the carbon footprint is going to enslave everybody, but at the same time, they want to also condition you into not wanting to travel. Because when they tell you that you're only going to be able to travel a limited amount every year because of your carbon footprint, you need to be conditioned from lots of different aspects so that you don't even want to travel anymore. So let's start with these stories that are out there about travel. We've continually heard about what? Travel's become more dangerous. Travel is bad for the carbon footprint and for the climate with carbon emissions. So not only are they going to condition you into traveling less because of the carbon footprint, they ultimately want to make sure that you don't even want to travel anymore. Because remember, it's global enslavement, but there's not enough prison cells to put us all inside of. So we're going to enslave ourselves by wanting the things the government already wants for us. Thus, these travel limits are going to be implemented, and they're using stories like this to scare you from ever traveling again. Have you ever heard such insane stories? Look at these two stories I'll play for you. These are just stories in the last 24 hours. Woman accused of growling and biting passengers. That's one story, so that's enough to make you not want to get on a plane. And then, of course, we have a story, if you haven't heard these Boeing whistleblower manufactured stories, to make you afraid to get on a plane because they're telling you that the planes are no longer safe. The planes are suddenly falling apart in thin air because they're trying to cut corners and make more money. So people out there, again, hear these stories and they go, I'm afraid to get on a plane. Well, guess what? That's the point.
And also new tonight, growling and snapping her teeth. That's what police say a woman did on a Spirit Airlines flight before they arrested her. This is a look at Lanika Dillard. Documents obtained by the 8 News Now investigators reveal Metro had to get everyone off the plane at Harry Reid International and physically escort Dillard out. She faces the charge of violating airport rules. She's out of jail but due back in court on May 29th.
This morning, growing turbulence for one of the world's largest airplane manufacturers, Boeing, as the federal government has launched a new investigation into the company amid allegations about one of Boeing's airplanes. The FAA tells NBC News it's investigating new whistleblower claims made by a Boeing quality engineer about the 787 Dreamliner. The latest claims, first reported by the New York Times, come after a series of dangerous mishaps involving other Boeing planes in recent months. The whistleblower, Sam Salihpour, says sections of the Dreamliner's fuselage are put together improperly and that after thousands of flights, it could break apart mid-air. In a letter to the FAA, his attorney writes it is likely to cause premature fatigue and failure over time in two major airplane joints.
He is alleging that Boeing knowingly took a series of manufacturing shortcuts in the construction of the 787.
Boeing says it is fully confident in the plane, which has undergone intense stress testing, adding these claims about the structural integrity of the 787 are inaccurate and do not represent the comprehensive work Boeing has done to ensure the quality and long-term safety of the aircraft. This latest whistleblower worked at a Boeing plant in South Carolina, the same plant that employed another whistleblower, John Barnett, who was found dead last month with what appeared to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The new Dreamliner allegations come as the company faces intense scrutiny after that mid-air blowout on a Boeing MAX 9 Alaska Air flight earlier this year and two fatal MAX Air crashes overseas in 2018 and 2019. Congress is planning hearings next week.
Boeing is putting profits and production speed ahead of quality and safety.
So that's the first manufacturing of behavior, right? Making you afraid to fly, making you compliant with what they ultimately want is for you not to travel or fly anywhere anymore. And that will tie into the carbon footprint. The second stories out there, you may have noticed there's an uptick in stories about road rage. Now, does that mean that there aren't crazy, unhinged people around us? No, of course, we see people driving crazy all the time. A lot of them are texting and driving, which is just as dangerous as drinking and driving these days. But a lot of the stories we see, if you do a search about road rage, they're popping up everywhere by design. You see, road rage has been around for a long time. There's crazy drivers, okay? Now, again, they might be more enhanced now because people are a little bit more narcissistic. They're a little bit more out of control. And of course, younger people are driving way more recklessly than we've ever seen. However, they want you to know about these stories. That's why they keep making the news all over the place. They want you to know because ultimately, just like these stories that we hear about the dangers of flying, they want you to think about the dangers of driving, abductions, accidents, and of course, road rage. Because what this leads to is you accepting and going along with the future is that they have planned for us when it comes to driving. That is electric controllable, driverless vehicles. And in this world, in this reality that they're trying to create, they don't want you to think that having the freedom to drive is a freedom. They want you to think that having the freedom to drive is actually more of a chore and a burden, and it's extremely dangerous. And the resolution for this will be self-driving vehicles where people can't get out of the car, where there's no more car accidents, there's no more road rage, thus the smart city technology, thus ultimately the world they're trying to create for us, and they want you to want it. So look at these stories about road rage and think how many people see these stories and are afraid to go out in their own car and drive.
Also developing this morning, the woman who was severely hurt in an apparent road rage incident in Hopkinton, well, she's died. Destiny DeKoff's mother tells us her daughter passed away yesterday afternoon after complications during surgery. The driver accused of hitting her, Ryan Sweat, says the victim's car slammed on the brakes right in front of him on Route 85 on Thursday. Then he claims 5 people got out of the car and surrounded him. Witnesses say he drove off but then turned around and hit DeKoff. Sweat is now being held without bail.
Yeah, that teen says the driver followed her for 7 miles before he got out of his car and attacked that young girl. Today, we've learned an arrest warrant has been issued for that driver.
I get behind him, we're getting on the highway, and then he starts to brake, like just slam on his brakes.
19-year-old Mariah Hooks began filming this driver Tuesday after she says the man cut her off along I-240 and began tailgating the teen driver.
I just go around and keep going. He gets behind me, and then he starts flipping me off, taunting me. He was giving me motions like, come on.
She pulled off on Sunny Lane, but the driver followed and got out of his car.
I mistakenly got out of the car, not thinking he was going to keep charging towards me and punch me in my nose.
Are you fucking yeah? Are you kidding me?
He's charging towards me again, so I'm running from him at this point because I'm already bleeding and I'm already screaming and crying, and he's trying to hit me again.
The driver took off. Now police are searching for the man.
You saw blood, but you still wanted more. That's what bothers me most. That if he had opportunity, he would have caused more damage to my child. He does not need to be on the streets. He needs to be arrested immediately.
Now, anyone with information is asked to call the Oklahoma City Police Department. Reporting live, Kylie Thomas, KOCO 5 News.
And ultimately, those things, driving, flying, lead to imprisonment, self-imprisonment. And last but not least, in 3 of the things, and we can look at every single story, and that's what you should do. You should look at every single story and say, what are they trying to make me feel and why? And if you know the blueprint, you know Agenda 2030, you know all the things that they have in place of how they expect us and want us to live, which is totally without freedoms, but under control of technology, then these stories start to make sense. And last but not least, which I've covered in detail one time already about these stories of women walking around getting punched in the face. And people just keep hearing this and they're like, wow, did you hear on TikTok? Did you hear all these viral stories of women just getting decked with no motive whatsoever other than the fact that they're women? Well, the motive isn't the fact that they're women. The motive is the government who has motive to make you want to have CCTV cameras everywhere so that people could be under facial recognition 24/7. These stories are manufactured. And if you can't see that in this news clip of all these girls who are randomly getting punched, who are randomly online, who are randomly gaslighting you into feeling unsafe in your own cities, think about what the resolution to this is. The resolution is ultimately facial recognition on every street corner.
New at 10, what appears to be a dangerous trend in New York City could be happening here in Chicago. Several women report being physically attacked while simply walking down the street.
That's what Chicago police say also happened to a woman in the Gold Coast. Here, in a busy area near State and Chicago on Saturday night. That's where we find CBS 2's Mabel Gonzalez. Live now. Mabel.
Yeah, Joe and Erica, this is a very busy area of town. We went from business to business asking people if they had seen or heard anything when that attack happened. They had not, but one woman who says she witnessed it firsthand went on social media to send out a warning.
Just like out of nowhere.
These different women are going viral on social media for sharing a similar story.
I was literally just walking and a man came up and punched me in the face. So I just got punched in the face walking home.
The alleged assault happening in New York City, causing black eyes and even swelling on the victims in broad daylight for no apparent reason.
It definitely has changed my sense of just sort of paranoia or anxiety with just being and traveling around.
And now, back here in Chicago.
Okay, this is a PSA for all the girls in Chicago.
This woman claims to have witnessed a similar assault.
I was just walking my dog in Gold Coast River North area, and as I got up to my building, a woman ran up so terrified because a man had just punched her in the face, and then he darted west down Chestnut. He threw her phone, her nose was bruised, she was bleeding a little bit, so scared. We called the police.
Chicago police confirmed to CBS 2 that a 52-year-old woman was walking near State and Chicago Saturday evening when a man hit her in the face. He then picked up the belongings she dropped and threw them across the street, police say, before taking off. It's unclear what the motive was behind the attack, but this apparent witness took to social media to send out a warning.
That is just so scary. That's happening both in New York and here now. So everyone just be extra aware out there and stay safe.
We're told the victim who was hit here refused medical attention. Chicago police tell us they are investigating this case, and so far, no arrests. Reporting in the Gold Coast, Maribel Gonzalez, CBS 2 News.
Thank you, Maribel.
So those are some of the stories that we see manufactured on a day in, day out basis, right? Every day we're hearing stories about not just the dangers of flying, the dangers of passengers on planes, the dangers and the delays in flights and travel delays. These are all things that they're doing deliberately. It's deliberate sabotage, okay? Same with driving. Everything's so dangerous. It's so dangerous to drive. People are getting out of their cars. They're punching girls in the face. They're punching girls in the face in the road. We need to run these people down, find these people. And the solution, of course, is well, we won't fly and travel as much anymore because airplanes aren't safe. Ultimately, we won't drive our cars anymore because that's too dangerous, and we'll let the government drive us around in driverless vehicles, and we'll let technology control. There'll be less accidents. There'll be less dangers. Everyone will feel safe and protected. And as far as the streets go, well, when you're in these smart cities, you won't have to worry about women getting punched because these cameras will be in place, and it'll be smart technology in place and facial recognition in place so that nobody can randomly do this and get away with it like they can now. And of course, we could all look around and say, how are people getting away with punching women in the face in the streets? How are they? Well, ultimately, the police are letting them get away with it because the people doing it are government operatives. That's who they are. I love how they could just give you no motives to any of these things other than, oh, they're angry on the roadway. Oh, the Boeing is just trying to save money. Oh, a woman just went on the plane and decided she wanted to bite people and was growling at people. These are all stories that make sense. And of course, people believe these stories. And ultimately, then they say, we need to stop this. We need a resolution. I don't feel safe in a car. I don't feel safe in a plane. And the government comes in and gives you those resolutions. Those resolutions include travel restrictions, travel bans, facial recognition, and of course, eventually driverless vehicles. That's how the news works. It doesn't work to inform you. It works to condition you. Condition your behavior. Ultimately, that's what they're trying to do, and that's what this is leading towards because people are going to see all these stories. They see them on a day in and day out basis, and then they're asking for the things that the government has already plotted and planned for us to live under. These rules, these restrictions, and people think it's for the betterment of humanity. They don't realize the government's the ones who are formulating these stories so that you enslave yourself more inside of their system. A system, of course, in which they have total control, are never voted out of office. They're never voted out of their positions of power because eventually when these systems are in place, there's no free speech, there's no voting, there's nothing anymore. It's a literal totalitarian dictatorship under the all-seeing eye of Big Brother. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.